Welcome in MDC family. Sorry for the technical issues today. This Wednesday evening, we're going to be discussing 30 years on from Stephen Lawrence. Has Britain changed? Murder. Stephen Lawrence. We're going to watch this clip and then go on from there.
To me, it would be essential that these people say yes.
Sorry, family, go right back to the beginning.
To me, it would be essential that these people say yes, I murdered Stephen Lawrence before they are let out on into the society again. My son is in Jamaica in the ground. He can't come out. My son is dead. Never will be able to come out of the coffin.
It is an outrage that two young black youths were on their way home when, for no reason whatsoever, one of them was stabbed to death.
Somebody is shielding them, and whoever's shielding them, please release them to the police.
It's a black issue. They can't go home at night and close the door and blanket out. Black people has got it for good.
Let somebody know who these people are that have killed my nephew, Stephen Lawrence.
I just thought to myself, well, somebody's been murdered, they're going to go out and look for his killers. But as the days pass, then you realise that it's a completely different thing, that Stephen was a black boy and the interest was not there.
The price that we had to pay is a very, very heavy price.
My feelings is, if it had been a white boy, they would have surrounded the black community, they would have arrested as many black boys as they could, and they would not stop until they get the killer.
Stephen was going to fulfill my childhood ambition to be an architect. That's what I wanted to be. When he came to me and said that I want to be an architect, he was he could draw anything just by looking at it. All my kids, they can just draw anything. And I was thinking that sometime when I was walking down the road, I would see a building that he had designed. And when he came and said to me that I want to be an architect, I was so pleased. I'm thinking this man is going to do something that I wanted to do and achieve it, because he was brilliant. The day that Stephen died, I was looking through the window and seeing other people going to work, and I was really, didn't like the idea that I wasn't able to work. And he came downstairs and saw me looking through the window. And he said to me, "Dad, are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm fine." I said, "Remember, do not go anywhere this evening. Come straight home from school." And that's the last time I spoke to him. The evening when his mother came, I had to go and fetch her from Woolwich, and it was about 9 o'clock or so. And I had done dinner. We had eaten because we were waiting for him to come, and he didn't come. And then the doorbell rang. And when the doorbell rang, I said to myself, "Why is he ringing the bell? He's got his own keys." And when I went to the door and opened the door. It was Joey Shepherd and his father telling me that Joey Shepherd was down at the bus stop waiting for the bus when he saw these guys attack Stephen. So we got up and was going down to see exactly where down in Wellhall Road it happened, because you can see straight down Wellhall Road. And we didn't see any light flashing, blue light flashing or anything like an ambulance or anything. So we decided to go to the hospital. And they put us in a room to sit and wait until, because they said they were looking after him. And then about half an hour or so later, they came in and said to us that he's dead. And I remember going into the room and looking at him laying in the place where they had him. And I left the hospital and drove home that evening. And I can't remember driving home. The only thing I remember is getting up in the morning and thinking I had a dream. So I went upstairs to his room to look, and his bed wasn't slept in. So that's when I realized that what had happened had happened.
My feelings is, if it had been a white boy, they would have surrounded the black community, they would have arrested as many black boys as they could, and they would not stop until they get the killer.
We are very used to this type of thing where life is regarded as cheap in South Africa. But nevertheless, it's a sense of deep concern that it should happen in a country like Britain.
The fact that a man had to come all the way from Africa, and from the time that man spoke with the family, the media door that was close to us was open wide like that. The morning when we went to meet him, the room was full with television cameras, newspaper people, which didn't happen before. And then all of a sudden, the gates opened after we spoke to him.
He's taken the time out to see us. We were truly grateful for that, and that just shows that people from abroad seem to be more interested in what's happened to our son than the Prime Minister and the government of this country.
It's 4 years on since my son's been murdered. And what we want out of this is to find out the truth of exactly what went on that night. And the only way we're going to get the truth is by having a judicial inquiry.
Look into how the police dealt with this case from the very off, and come out with some strong recommendation to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
An experienced judge of the High Court, backed by a very experienced independent panel, and this inquiry will have full powers to compel the attendance of witnesses to give evidence under oath, and if they fail to do so, to punish them as if it were a contempt of court.
When Clive Drifter came, it took me quite a long time to start trusting him. Because when he met us and tell us that he was going to be in charge of the case, he said to us that he hopes that we will trust him. That's the first thing he said. And it took me a little while because of what they did in the first place. I was thinking, is he really serious about trying to solve the case? And it took us a long time for us to be able to trust him. Clive was an old-style police officer who treated us like how they should have treated us from the beginning. You know, he used to give us information about what's happening. He would call us and tell us what he's doing. He didn't give us the information to stop the case going forward, but we were part of what was happening while he was there. Before, we weren't. We weren't told anything.
Very pleased for Stephen's family and those who loved him. There have been several investigations over the last 18 years, during which the Lawrence family have campaigned tirelessly for justice. We pay tribute to Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence's courage and dignity. They have contributed to major changes within policing, the law, and indeed within society as a whole.
One of my greatest hopes is that these people have now realized that they've been found out. And it's now going to go and lay down in their bed and think that they weren't the only ones who were responsible for the death of my son. And they're going to give up the rest of the people so that I come out here again in a year's time and talk to you people again.
How can I celebrate when my son lies buried? When I cannot see him or speak to him, when will I see it? When I'll see him grow up and go to university or get married or have children. These verdicts will not bring my son back.
They should not be released until they own up to the fact that they were the ones who actually killed my son. When they go before these panel, do they have to accept or say, yes, I did the murder before they allow them to leave? Because if I was on that panel, that's one of the questions I would be asking them. You've got to say to me whether or not you were involved or if you did kill the killing. If you don't tell me yes or no on that, then I'm not going to say yes for you to leave. To me, it would be essential that these people say, yes, I murdered Stephen Lawrence before they are let out into the society again. My son is in Jamaica in the ground. He can't come out. My son is dead. Never will be able to come out of the coffin. The legacy that I wanted him to bring is not the legacy that he has brought. And one of the things which I feel proud of is the fact that people saw the way that we never gave up, to the stage where we did a private prosecution. There was ever two private prosecution done in the country, and we did the first one, we didn't know about it, and we did the second one. And also the fact that Stephen was one of those people who did things that we didn't know about. Rodal Haddon family, Steve was helping them to raise money, didn't tell us anything. And we only found out when he got killed and the family came to the house and was telling us what he was doing. So, you know, Stephen's legacy is the fact that any black person in this country knows that anything that happened to them, they have to try and do things for themselves. They can't rely on the police force.
Going to do, man.
Hello? Duma, man.
Yeah. That is such a sad story, you know, and I don't know how you can carry on and live with that in your heart. I mean, it ripped the family apart. You know, the father had to leave England because he had no trust. He didn't believe in what was going on. It touches your heart. And I mean, on the 22nd, isn't it? The anniversary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very touching still.
Even that, sorry to cut you, Skip, even the fact that the father said, he wasn't in that video, in the other video we had, that the father said that, you know, the fact that they was afraid to bury Stephen Lawrence here because they feared reprisal or, you know, vandalism of the grave.
Yeah.
Like Stephen Lawrence done something that they're trying to act like, you know, maybe he deserved to die. That's why, you know, how cold is this, bro? 30 years on. You know what I mean? I remember actually watching it on TV with my mother. My mum her eyes was watering, brother. I was upset as well. And I told you today that I actually forgot about it until it started coming back up this year about the 30th anniversary. And I told you today again, it reminded me of how I felt. And, you know, even me seeing my mum upset. And even today it upset me, bro.
Yeah, it's upsetting, yes.
It upset me. So that would be even a good simple question to ask everybody, you know, how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hearing about Stephen Lawrence. Sydney, I see you just put your hand up, brother. You wanna add your bit, bro?
Yeah. I do. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you clear, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember this very clearly. I mean, I was living in Africa at the time, and this rocked the whole world. You know, in 1993, I was still in high school, and to see someone just taken out like that was just one of the worst things you can imagine. A young person my age, you know, contemporary, and I'm seeing, you know, their life was ended. But you know, you look just recently, another 19-year-old boy down the road from where we are, got the same thing happened to him. He was stabbed up and he died.
Yeah.
And still the same thing is happening. Nothing has changed. You know, the police are still dragging their feet and doing what needs to be done. He was 19 years old, and the newspapers reported him as a 20-year-old, as a man in his 20s. You know, so disrespectful, because you're dehumanizing the whole situation. Not saying that a man is inhumane, but you know, but when you look at, when you put it in the context of this being a child, you know, that something has happened to a child is different from saying that something has happened to a 20-year-old. You know. You know, and I think you know, even the institutional racism that the police are guilty of, very little has changed.
Sorry, is that the TV in your background?
No, yeah. Sorry, I think it's gotten much worse now, and you know, unless these things are addressed, none of that is going to change. None of that is going to change. Turn it down. None of that is going to change, and people are going to still have the same problems that we had in 1993, 2023.
Mm. 2 weeks before anybody was even arrested, you know. Do you know what I mean? And they were definitely dragging their feet.
18 years until somebody was actually, you know, put away for it. 18 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
18 years.
2011,
You know,
2011, isn't it?
yeah, 2012 was when they actually, you know, sentenced these guys to 14 years in prison. I mean,
Yeah,
what
and
form of restitution did the family have? You know, I mean, obviously you can't pay somebody for a child, but you know, if this was done in broad daylight in London, the most CCTV place in the world.
Is 15 years enough though? Is
Hardly.
15 years enough for the murder?
No way, not
No
a chance. I mean, they're only going to do half of that. They're probably out by now. These guys, you know, they had 18 years to put their affairs in order, and they're going into prison, which is another place that is completely institutionally racist. You know, they'll get a hero's welcome when they go in there. You know, so and when they come back out, they'll still be carrying on with their racism. And I think they even found that a few police officers were also complicit in covering up these guys.
Yeah.
What has happened to them? Nothing has happened. You know,
And
nothing has happened.
they still say 3 to 4 other persons involved that have not been arrested or found due to them closing the case. Seafood Blaps, you got your hand up, brother.
Yeah, when it happened, my daughter was about 3 years old. And so now it's 30 years on. I would say Stephen's life was ended short, and he would have been 30 years older from the time he got stabbed. You see what I'm saying? So at this point, I'm just like, what would I do if it was my daughter? I still wouldn't be over it. You see what I'm saying? I wouldn't be over it at all. I wouldn't be trying to get over my remorse or get over anything like that, you know, get through my mourning or anything like that. I wouldn't be trying that. I'll be determined to get every single person that was not only involved in the actual act, but was involved in keeping it under wraps in prison.
Yeah.
You know, minimum in prison as well. And you're talking about 14, 15 years is enough. I'm like, well, a life for a life as far as I'm concerned. People accidentally kill people and get 7 years, and 10 years and stuff like that, and manslaughter and stuff like that. You know, I was angry, I lashed out, I hit him, he dropped him, he cracked his head on the pavement, and you know, and they get 10 years for it. And you're like, you took a person's life on purpose, with malice and hatred in your heart, and so therefore you should go to prison for life.
Sure.
Your life is taken away. It's bad enough we have to pay for it. We have to pay for you living out the rest of your days in prison. You know, it's bad enough. But again, if I was on the time where I walked down the street to see if I could see ambulance like the dad did and didn't see anything, and I saw the people then walking around or prancing around like they, yeah, of course I'm going down there to kill one of them. Do you see what I'm saying? And then I would have got 30 years.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Because that's it's manslaughter. You see what I mean? I would have got the full sting, and they would have found me immediately because I'll be over the body. Yeah. So now, when they're talking about, oh yeah, but you can't just kill people because they did something wrong, blah blah blah. No, you're in the midst of your fury. You know, it's one of them decisions you make at the time. You don't just go back and methodically think, how am I going to do this? You're just there. You killed my son, I'm killing you. Done. It's just like you catch someone in the midst of raping your daughter, you're killing them. And you're not going to get anything done to you because every one of them people in the jury would say, I would do the same damn thing.
Yeah.
Right? So if they were caught at the time, so now you can't do that because they're gone a long time. It's been years since, but your fury is just exactly the same as then you went down the street and saw them. Or, you know what I mean? At the time it happened. So now when you eventually catch these people, you want them to get 50 years, 100 years with hard labor and getting whiplashed every day, you know what I mean? If they speak too much
You're
You
talking
know,
about the
you want,
trauma and the psychological effect, isn't it? It's
and
not.
nothing's happened. And the
No.
people that are protecting them, nothing's happened to them. I don't know about the rage, but you know, I'm enraged hearing about it. So imagine if you were directly involved. I can't imagine it.
That's right. Brother Desmond.
Yes. Maybe I look at it a little bit differently, because I had a youth of about the same age at the time doing A-levels, and I know that he was not the only youth that was skilled in that year or subsequent years. So I'm conscious that there's an interplay between sort of race and class. So I asked myself, had it not been a youth who had potential to be incorporated into the system, would they have given it the interest they gave it? Because many young people since then, hundreds, have died on the street, and there's no hoo-ha. And sometimes we have to take the emotions out of it and look at it from an institutional point of view. So this idea of institutional racism been knocking around since the 60s. And it was basically people like Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, when he changed his name. He said, although the Americans, the African American, were able to vote, nothing had substantially changed. And he identified as institutional racism, and it was to do with the attitude, policies, practice. So it's not just an individual thing of a sort of a couple of rotten-head or bad-head officer, as Scarman said, because Scarman, he did one in the 80s, and he said the police was not institutionally racist. Now, to me, the only difference that Macpherson made was to actually say, well, yes, accept that there was institutional racism. Now, schools are also seen as institutional racism, it was acknowledged. So are a lot of other institutions. Even the army was seen as institutional racist. So this thing of institutional racism as a tool to understand how it impacts on Black lives need to be understood.
But
so it's not just that.
Didn't they admit that? Didn't somebody in the Metropolitan admit that? Not this year, last year.
No, but I'm saying is this goes back to Macpherson, when it was not accepted that the police was, by a lot of people, that it was institutionally racist, and it still isn't. And even recently, another judge have identified particularly Met as being institutionally racist. So institutional racism is built into the British system. It's part and parcel of the old British system. And you're not going to get rid of it by arguing over one debt or two debts or whatever, sadly though that may be. It needs to be a more concerted approach, because even this Bedfordshire police now, they're institutionally racist, but they failed to implement the Race Equality Act, because Black people are some 3 times more likely to have force used against them than a white person.
Right.
Now, no one is actually addressing these disproportionate outcomes. Why is it that so much force is always being used against Black people and not white people?
Yeah.
So that is attitude. And it's also the culture that doesn't challenge people and their behavior. It's also in their policies or lack of policies. So this is a bigger thing than Stephen Lawrence. All that Macpherson did was to help us, is to give us a tool that could be used to build something. But we don't use that tool. because we haven't held institution to account.
Right.
We haven't really used the law to challenge the system, how it operates. Now, personally, I've sued Bedford County Council about 17 times for institutional racism. And because I had no support, on many occasions I had to settle for personal, what you call it, compensation.
Right.
Yeah.
But these things are going on everywhere.
All right. Let me just ask. There's a few hands up.
Mark was
Montel, I'll
next,
get to
and
you.
then
Raps will get to you. Mark, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to just recap on what Des was saying earlier. So yeah, because at the time, you know, when it happened, you know, Stephen Lawrence wasn't the first. You know what I mean? You know, we could look at, you know, Roland Adams, for example. He got killed in the same area down at same southeast London, there, Eltham, all that kind of area, hotbed for right wing, you know, activity down there. You know, Stephen Lawrence is now obviously, when they realised that, you know, the decent family he come from, you know, studying to be an architect, you know, they were good people. And then it's only when, to be honest, only when the right-wing Daily Mail jumped on it, because what the Daily Mail done, they named the killers on the front page of the paper, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right.
And for like, as we all know what the Daily Mail is, for them to do that was a big move for them at the time. But that's probably the most racist right-wing newspaper, probably still is. You know what I mean? At the time. So, you know, it was a case of where class was a factor in it as well.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely.
That's all really. I just wanted to note on that. I'll leave the floor, let some other people speak.
I think
Montel was next. Yeah. Go ahead, Montel.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry for being late.
No worries, brother.
Evening, Montel.
Just to share a few things, again, following up from what Desmond had said. Yes, Stephen Lawrence wasn't the first, and unfortunately, he won't be the last person to die. So what was different with Stephen Lawrence? Again, what's already been mentioned, this term, institutional racism, was accepted at the time by all police forces. At that time, it was accepted. So they all were forced to admit that certainly the Met police were institutionally racist. Now, before I go on, I just want to underline how police forces work in this country. There are 43 separate forces. Each one has a chief constable. Apart from London, that's got a commissioner. They've all got.
Sorry, 1 minute. Oh, let me mute. Sorry about that. Montel, go ahead.
Thank you. So they've all got a force lead. Now, roll forward to George Floyd. It was only when George Floyd died that actually you had lots of actions and movements in terms of British policing. So from the Macpherson report, there were 102 recommendations. 102. There was a lot of recommendations on what the police should do around recruitment, around their internal culture. Lots of recommendations about stop and search and about use of force. Now, I did a presentation to Luton Borough Council's Crime and Disorder panel, and one of the things I talked to that panel was in 2010, Bedfordshire Police had 1.5% black officers. Despite the number of diverse officers going up threefold to about 20%, the number of black officers, like people on this call, went down from 1.5% to under 1%. So from 2010 to 2020, the number went down. Bedfordshire Police and many county forces very rarely have people who look like us above the rank of inspector. Why
So
is that?
we're disproportionately
Underrepresented.
underrepresented, yeah.
Yes, in terms of the senior leadership in policing. As a result of the George Floyd, they brought out something called the National Race Action Plan, which some of you may have heard about, and it talked about over-policed and underprotected and how they should re-engage with the black community and not treat the black community unfairly. Now, what they get in every police force is a lot of pushback, not only from white officers, but mainly from other officers, the ones who don't look like people on this call, okay? The other ethnic officers, because through other diversity, they have recruitment and engagement and retention because they're BAME. Now, we're BAME, but we're black, okay? So the black people have not improved and increased, and we are not superintendents and chief constables, but there are other people of colour like that. What's already been said is, in terms of disproportionality, even though the rates dropped in Bedfordshire, it's still too high. Even though it's dropped from 7 times more likely to 3 times more likely, 3 times more likely is too high. Even though it's a small amount of officers who are doing it, those small amount of officers are still treating people unfairly. Just want to underline something else. So again, the question was, what's changed since Stephen Lawrence? Again, I know Desmond and other people have been working in this area for a long time. You know that the Equality Act came in place in 2010. Now, the Race Relations Act, did you know that police forces were exempt from the Race Relations Act?
Why?
They were exempt from it. Exactly. Why? So throughout the 70s, the 80s, the 1990s, the 2000s, if they call them noughties, right up until 2010, they were exempt. In other words, they could discriminate and nothing gets done about it. So when we talk about the policies and the practices, one of the things which you probably, those of you, I know many of you on this call, and you know that I always pull out, but by many officers still feel that they are exempt from racism and discrimination. And I'm constantly highlighting them, actually, you're not exempt anymore. You can be held account for treating people unfairly. Now, what company
so they should be as well.
Yeah, absolutely they should be. But they're not. Now, if they treat people unfairly because of their gender or because of their religion, right, they're held to account for that, okay? But how many people are currently held to account because they treat Black people, because we are African or Caribbean heritage, differently or unfairly or targeted, etc., because of, it could also be the place that we live or the places that we go to or the activities that we get involved in over policed. So it's about changing police culture. And one of the things I'm constantly saying to officers, I was in a police conference 3 weeks ago in Coventry talking about this issue. And one of the things I said is, it's only when senior officers get arrested for racism that things will really start to change.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thanks for your. Oh, sorry. Thanks for your input there, Montel. Seafood Blacks, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on 2 things. I mean, one, Montel is talking about repercussions from the being caught red-handed. 8 minutes and 46 seconds, we see a man get murdered while we were eating our breakfast, and so the whole world reacted, and so therefore something had to be done, had to be seen to be done, right? In retrospect to that, white people were, people were woken up to, oh wow, you're not joking, they really do target you for being Black. That's amazing. We're going to back you up now, and so they had to, and that's the whole point where we got some things getting changed, but none of that happened because of Stephen Lawrence and hundreds of others, Leon Briggs, for instance, that get custody for them just being negligent in their duty or basically just want to kill a Black person, damage a Black person. Now it's down to white people understanding it's not just Black people now. White people who are poor are the new Black people. Brown people that are poor are the new Black people. Black people that are
a class thing, isn't it?
Are still under attack. So now when we're coming down to the actual laws that need to be changed, it needs to be more, they need to be more responsible for the people that are under their command. So if someone under their command does something, it goes to them. Just like when someone does something wrong and they're you blame the parents. Yeah, I always blame the parents. That you always hear that, but when you talk about it in terms of a professional scenario, the people under your command listen to you. What do we do? Arrest the black people. Be strong on them. Be aggressive with them. Blah blah blah. They're out there doing something wrong because they're this color. They're this and out of order. So let's get hard on them. And then they do something out of order that is above and beyond what they do to white people, and nothing happens because the person above them has instructed them to do that. So we need to change the law, or we're just going to be seen as because we're just going to be seen as slaves. And what I'm saying is, right, oh yeah, slavery's over, Vic. Where you been? It's the 1800s we banned slavery, yeah. But you can only think of slavery in that regard if you see people walking around with chains. Wow, slavery's still going on. There's a person over there with chains on. But if you make the chains invisible,
yeah,
that's right.
You're in slavery. You see what I'm saying? Right. So they're treating us just like we're runaway slaves, and nothing's changed to them.
Well, that's what the force was made for, isn't it? To protect the slave master's property and oversee the slave.
But so we need to see actual laws change that stop protecting the police when they've done something wrong. Okay, like in police, they've got this. Help me out, Montel. What is it? It's immunity. Something to do with immunity.
Shall I come in?
They always.
Shall I come in now?
Yeah, well, it's called something to do with immunity, where they listen.
Well, that's actually America, not in this country.
Yeah, I know, that's
yeah.
In America, they've got that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, they have. They have immunity in America, right? And people think they do in this country. Now, yeah. So just to walk through, because Blacks is right on a number of things. I'm going to say two things underlining what Black said, but just to start with that last point, because that was a really good point that you mentioned. In terms of immunity, some people in British policing think that they have, but they don't. Now, what they have in every force area is a department called PSD, stands for Professional Standards. Now, what happens is, if anybody makes a complaint, it goes to Professional Standards for whatever reason that you want to complain. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, if it's to do with gender or the person's like a pervert or whatever they are, right, or they exploit money from gangs, then they take it really seriously and they come down hard on people. Now, 94% of discrimination cases are not upheld. Now, it's not because of immunity, it's because of, as we said, something that we talked about, institutional racism. Now, when I learned that statistic in Bedfordshire, I've proposed that they change the structure of how they look at complaints. Now, that's been piloted at the moment. The number of complaints should be dropped down from 94% upheld to about 15 or 20%. It's because what they were doing is defending each other every time a complaint was made. We've all heard it. We've all heard it many times. When if you say to somebody, that was racist, we've all heard, oh, I'm not racist. How many times have you heard people put up their hand and said, yes, I am racist? That's the first point. The other point I wanted to say, now, Black said they should change the law. Unfortunately, we have a Tory government. The Tories, people like Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, are worse than some of the other people. I've got 2 or 3 panel members on this call, and we use some of the laws up to 2014 in terms of police scrutiny and oversight. Some of you may not be aware that they have recently changed the law. They brought in a law called the Public Order Act 2023 this year. And they put in the most ridiculous sentence in that law. It is ridiculous. and I'm going to tell you what that sentence says. A police officer can stop and search a person whether or not they suspect that person on foot or in a vehicle is going to commit an offence of protesting or chaining themselves to any railing or fence. So even if the officer does or does not feel that they will find any evidence, because it's mainly about protesters. However, the way it's written is ridiculous.
So they're expecting, sorry to jump in. So they're expecting some form of resistance then, aren't they?
Well, what they're saying,
want to think about that.
Yeah, well, because what they've done is how they've written it wrongly, is they've written it that an officer can use that part of the legislation to stop and search me or you for no reason. Now, up until now, we've got the scrutiny panels that hold them to account for reasonable grounds and with go wisely and everything else. But now an officer says, oh, we don't need to do that anymore. The Public Order Act says I can do anything I want and target anybody. Now, if you all know something called the Road Traffic Act 1998, officers say we can stop and search, well, we can stop, not search, we can stop any vehicle on the road under section 163. Technically, they can't, okay? Because they must use every police power lawfully, clearly, and for a legitimate policing reason, but they think they can. And that's the problem. With this new Public Order Act, they will think that actually it says in there whether or not the person is going to protest. So the officer will say, well, that law gives me the power. I can do anything I want to anybody.
Yeah. So reasonable suspicion then, Montel, has kind of gone out of the window, isn't it?
It does, yes, exactly.
Well, it's a case of them bending and using the loophole, isn't it, for their purpose?
Yeah, they don't need reasonable suspicion or reasonable grounds.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Interesting, yes. We have another video. I don't know if there's any more questions or anybody want to say anything else before. I don't know, shall we play the next video?
I'd hand up, Skip.
Oh yeah, sorry. Better. You're there, got you.
Wake up. Towards bush.
So I never hear that. It cut out. Say it again.
Yeah, that's all right. You know, I hear it. I think one of the issue is this ignorance of the Black community, really, because as I said, I've had to challenge Bedford Borough Council and a number of times by the only way I could exercise my democratic right was to use the employment law against them and in recruitment. Now, I've actually made a complaint about the legal secretary and all different departments because they were practicing institutional discrimination, which, you see, disproportionality is a willful act. It's not an accident. So when the state allows people to be discriminatory, if, for example, the police can use their discretion. Now, the discretion means that they can let off a white person and charge a Black person. And you'll find any encounter a Black person has with the police, they run the risk of a criminal offense because the police can charge them with anything. And if they protest, they can charge them with resisting arrest. Now, a lot of people of my age, back in the 70s and 80s, have what you call a standalone offense, where you stop, because I lived through the SUS law.
Right.
And I was intimidated to go to London because you know that if you're driving a car and you're Black, especially if there's more than one of you in the car, you're going to get stopped and you're going to get searched. I mean, I got taken to West End Central, strip search and all that. And basically what they do is to irate you to the point where you may swear or do something, and then they'll charge you with resisting arrest. But when you go to court, there won't be any offense you've committed. So if you, I mean, I have a record for resisting arrest, but because I didn't understand the law at the time, and because it was an indictable offense, I should have been given a lawyer. But I was there thinking there is justice, and there was no justice. So I was convicted for assaulting the police with intent to resist arrest. Now, on reflection, I'm thinking, well, what was I being arrested for? Why wasn't I charged with that? So any encounter, this is where you get the suspicion.
So there was no charge?
Well, I wasn't being charged for nothing, but except for resisting arrest.
Resisting arrest, yeah.
But I wasn't being arrested for anything. So these are some of the things they use our ignorance against us.
As they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Innit? That's what they say.
Right. So if you don't know your rights, then it's difficult for you to exercise it. And for a lot of our young people, particularly, when they're getting humiliated on the street, because I was once told to undo my fly in the middle of London. And when I refused, I was taken to West End Central and strip search, and they never found nothing, so they charged me with resisting arrest. So all I'm saying is we need to have some kind of social justice group where we can have people in to actually educate us, and our young people particularly, about how to survive an encounter with the police. Because many times the encounter with the police is dangerous for Black youth. You have, for example, presently, youth crime has gone down 20%, yet for Black youth it's gone up 40%. Now that is not an accident.
Technical issue.
That is deliberate policy, that is deliberate attitude, and this is how Black people are disproportionately discriminated against. You have the situation with child P in school. These are not isolated incidents. So what I'm saying is, we can argue about Stephen Lawrence, but rest in peace, we are still in the struggle.
Yeah, true.
Not one of us here is exempt, because if you try to be effective, they will find a way to silence you. So
what do I say? What did I say? Even I've said this long time, but I said it again today to a couple of my friends that, you know, as Black people, especially Black men, every time we leave our house, there is a possibility, Desmond, we don't return.
Yeah,
you understand?
So that's why the mentality of the Black man is PTSD, isn't it?
Mental health.
Yeah,
mental health problem, because you, as Theresa May did say, she was going to create a hostile environment. For Black people, the hostile environment was long created. It was created from the introduced the 1962 Immigration Act, which denied Black people, British citizens, the right to come and settle in Britain.
Right.
And from then on, we were seen as alien.
Yeah, make it difficult for men.
And that was a state.
And even in the what is it, the nationality and what is it, the national?
I mean, if you even look at the history,
Borders Act, look, they're trying to even take away us from having the right to due process of law.
Yeah, but yet, if you look at the Ukrainian, the way the Ukrainians are treated, you have like McDonald's inviting them for breakfast. You have people opening up their home for them. I had to write to, I was debating with someone on Facebook, who was a bit of a nationalist. So I said, look, not too long ago, when I was a British soldier, I was facing the USSR in Germany, and Ukraine was part of the USSR, and they had missiles pointing at British soldiers, and we had 24 hours to live, because if the Russian attacked, there would be no reinforcement for us. We had to hold the line, and we would be wiped out. And these were the Ukrainians that was also pointing them at us. They had nuclear bunker in Ukraine. And then suddenly now, people who have died and fought for the British Empire, as it were, is now being treated less than former enemies, and it's all because they're white.
Well, this is it. Ukraine, and like you said, their situation is war and so forth, but they can come here easily, and it's not an issue. It's not a problem opening people's homes and everything for them. But the Caribbean and that African is an issue.
As Bob Marley say, how long before we talk with the boss? Anybody ain't giving us no welcome, you know what I'm saying?
Not really, not really.
Yeah. So we need to think seriously of organizing to deal with the social dimension, the justice dimension. So you need the social, but you also need a kind of social justice group so that people can come together to say defend institutional process, because the Race Equality Commission, they used to take up cases. They don't do that no more.
I think what you said.
We had a Bedford Race Equality Council in Bedford.
Yeah.
This mayor that is being kicked out now, he closed it.
Yeah.
So if you have any racial issue, I mean, I had one person to help a couple of people recently, and they were being kicked out of their job because they wanted to recruit people and a less pay. And they harassed her till in the end we had to take the firm to the employment tribunal, where they made a satisfactory settlement, so they didn't have to go to court because they know they had no defense. But had she not had some help, she'd have had to go and employ an expensive lawyer, and at the end of it may not have won. So when you haven't got the resources, it's hard for you to take the system on by yourself.
I think what you said earlier.
You need a collective in a way.
Yeah, sorry to jump in, Desmond. I think what you said earlier.
I step back now.
Yeah.
No, I have too much things to say, man.
No, man, you're good, man. I think what you said about the youth being aware and knowing their rights, and being taught up in some place where they can, that's the point. It definitely should be.
So sorry, Blacks, because we're just after 8. Sorry, you're coming in a minute, Desmond. So bottom line is, according to the topic, do you think Britain has changed since the murder of Stephen Lawrence? Is it yes or no for you?
No, well, my question would be, how has it changed? Because change is natural, because things that do not remain static. Now, for me, it is changing for the worse for black male particularly. For black female, not so much. When I was at university in the 90s, there were 4 black women to 1 black man at university. Black men make up probably less than 2% of the population, yet they make up over 13% of the prison population. They have the lowest academic achievement. That means they're overrepresented as unemployed. They suffer from higher rate of mental illness. They die younger. They have higher risk of stroke. So basically, I actually read a paper where a white man was saying that it's not in the interest of black women to pick up a black man.
Wow. Because
a black man has become a liability. So black men are in a serious situation.
Yeah. Okay then. All right then, Blacks, you had something to say? Because we're not far from wrapping up.
If you think of it in terms of world wars that Britain has launched in conjunction with their allies, America, around the world, America has not been off a war footing since the 60s. They are at war with at least 20-odd countries right now, including the Ukraine, Russia, blah, blah, blah. They're at war with the Ukraine. They're not helping the Ukraine.
They're bleeding them.
Right. Okay. So they are using the Ukraine to fight against Russia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true.
It's not Ukraine and that, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. And Britain, to be able to give away money to the Ukraine to help them defeat Russia, they have to carry on like they're an ally to the Ukraine, and then they want to join NATO. Everything's nice and hunky-dory. Absolute bullshit. Bovine defecation. Okay?
Okay.
We talk about our method of thinking about how we fit in as a nation, African nation. We have to think of it as a world war. Our world war has not ended for the last 400 years. It is still carrying on. They're at war with us. This is just one little piece to keep us unstable and incapable of fighting back. Okay, if you if you're fighting against someone that's stronger than you, and you kick him in the knee, they go down to one knee. As they try to get back up, you kick out the other leg. You don't wait for them to see if they're strong enough to fight you back. You keep lifting them. They stop trying to get up. But we're so strong, we keep trying to get up. That's why we keep it. We are kept slaves.
Okay, so has things changed then? Yes or no?
No, hell no. The only thing they've done is to make it smoother for them. They've made it nice and they're slick with it now.
Yeah. Okay, we have a bit of a technical issue. It keeps cutting out a little bit. Montel, you got your hands up?
Yeah, first of all, it certainly has not changed enough. Desmond's right that change, even though change is natural and is gradual, I think what the question really asks is, has the institutional racism gone away or been addressed? And the answer is nowhere near enough. As we said earlier on, it only started moving when somebody died of color in another country across the pond, not in this country. The other thing I was going to add is, I always tell people to be the change. And I'm unapologetically supportive of our Black community. Openly, I'm supportive of the Black community, and people hear that. And I always hear, and I'm sure that you hear too, that when we support people who look like us, who come from the Caribbean or come from where we come from, people look at us as if it's, oh, reverse racism and all those sort of ones, right? But isn't it interesting that when females do things for females, that's okay. When Jewish people do things for Jewish people, that's okay. When gay people do things for gay people, that's okay. But we can't go in and help our young Black men and our young Black women and Black older people. We can't do that. No, we get called reverse racism, right? Now, I am the chair of a school trust. And in my school trust, it's quite diverse. But personally, because I choose to, I go out of my way to intervene and support the young Black men and ladies in our school. And people see me do that all the time. I do it unapologetically.
Thank you, Montel.
Good on you, Montel. Keep it up, bro.
Keep up the good works, yes. Dudley, you there? What do you think? Has things changed? Yes or no?
I'm sorry for turning up late, guys.
No worries,
I don't think anything's changed because we're still fighting.
Simple and plain, innit?
and the people in authority are even getting away with killing their own anyway. So
who are we?
We're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
And so nothing's changed.
Okay, thank you. Not nice, but thank you. Mark, you come back. You there, Mark?
Come on to the pot.
Yeah, come. So, is Anduma there? What does Anduma think?
Yeah, we're waiting for Mark. Anduma?
Is Anduma sleeping?
Yeah, it might be, you know.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can hear you now.
Yeah. I was just on mute, also. I was just on mute. I was listening to all. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
Do you think things have changed or not?
Me.
Yes, you.
I can't. I have to be totally honest with you. I can't claim to know very much about what goes on black-wise in England. Very much. I can't. I'm not that aware perceptibly of what's going on. You know, when it's down to black people in general in England. I'm not that. Okay. It could be to do with the number of them. There's just too few. You know, nothing really. You know, seems as though that it seems, you know, not just that, but you know,
seems like people,
they don't seem to get together and come up and do things together. Perhaps, you know, so social activities, you know, it might improve them if they were to come together and do things, even little things, you know.
All right, okay.
We're the underdog. We're the underdog. That's all I'd say. We're the underdog. We're not really.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Naduma. Sydney. You got anything to say? Has things changed, Sydney? Yes or no? You still there, brother? While we're waiting, Mark, you back? Okay, maybe not.
What do you think, Spencer?
I don't think things have changed. So I mean, the way they're bending the law, to be honest, like the clause 9, sorry, and the border thing just made me think, right, we're going backward instead of forward. Do you know what I mean? And it's been such a struggle from them time there till now to even know that that's what they're going to do at this time, at this stage.
But the worst thing, sorry to cut you, sorry to cut you. It's interesting you even bring up the clause 9 of the what is it, the Nationality and Borders Act bill.
Yeah.
Borders Act. But look, even that law that whatever Richie the woman there, Priti Patel was trying to do. All she was doing really was, like I said before, she was trying to take out, that due process. Because these laws, if you look at even that law's been in for about 100 years.
Right, but my point is, it's there sitting idle. It's there sitting idle.
Right.
And then when you're ready, you're going to put up the little acts that go around it to make it now difficult for the black man and the black woman and the black family. At this stage and time, is that what you're really dealing with? It's been hard enough for how many years before now? And then now that's what you're going to come with. Take away people's homes. They lose their jobs, lose their family. And you send them back to a place they haven't been for how many years? 50 years.
In every angle, they don't want us to feel secure here, comfortable here. You understand? This is the problem. So I would just say, since I'm talking, I'll say no, I don't think there's been any changes. And I'm a person that's out and around. I know a lot of the black people, black boys, people, they've all got stories. And recent stories as well. It's not no long time ago stories. It's happening in 2023 same way. So I don't think there's been much changes in this area. But the only change I think is going to come from us, pushing for these changes, for us to try and, make them change legislation because it's within law. We've spoken this before. Systemic racism, all of what they can get away with. Look at what Montel just said that they brought in. It's within the law that allows them to get away with it. You understand? So unless we learn the law, we need to be versed in the law, because there is protection in law. Remedy is in law for us as well.
There is remedy, but
you've got to know the law.
But even the youth need to know. The youth need to know.
Yeah.
They need to be able to, they need to go somewhere or somewhere they can go where they can find out what their rights really are on the street. Because they're under attack,
but it also starts with the adults. It also starts with the parents as well, because some of the youngers, they're young. Do you understand? So if the parents was more versed in laws, and how we could protect ourselves, the laws that even the police have to work with. They can't abuse their powers, but if we don't know how to put them back into check, you understand? Then they'll always be off the path and we'll be always being abused. So even the parents need to know. So start, informing your kids from a younger age, to make them aware of it.
They use their brain.
What we have is a method we can teach to the youth to combat what the police want to do to them. The police want to be able to go up to your youth and violate them.
Straight.
Right?
Yes.
The reason is in them to violate you. That's what they want. So if you're saying, you're scared, there's a black man, they're normally the violent ones, so they must be carrying around a machete, right? So let's find and then find a knife on them if they've got one, and then put it on social media. See, this is what we're combating. We're finding these people all the time. This is all we find with black people, is that they carry around machetes. That's all they do.
But is this because how we're perceived on TV and that blacks in the movies, in the films, it's all
in the
negative.
social media, the idea.
So the propaganda has always been the way. You have to capture the mind first before you can make someone.
I mean, they've got it in their mindset that, they pull over a black guy in a car or on the street. He's due to have one or he's due to have one or few things. He's either,
Where you're
hold on, 1 minute, Blacks. He's due to have one or few things. Either he's going to have weed, or he's going to have a weapon. Do you know what I mean? In their mind, it's not so much a potluck business. They plan and hope to get.
Wait,
they will get.
Never say, look, okay, I'm going to wear transparent clothing then. All the youths got to wear transparent clothing. You're going to say, oh, that's the decency law. They're going, wait a minute, they got clothes on to keep them warm. What do you want them to wear? You want to search them? You don't have to search them now. They don't have to get violated because they're all transparent clothing. You can see their underwear, see they ain't got nothing, right? So now what's the problem? Oh, you're doing the decency law. Well, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to walk around naked, or do you want us to have the right of way, the right to walk down in decent clothing and not be violated by you? Which one do you want?
Yeah. Montel, you got your hand up. Go ahead, brother.
I'm going to share with you a story. Me and Marvin, bumped into some officers the other day who knew me. Now, where they knew me from was training which I did a few years ago. Now, every officer in Bedfordshire knows who I am. And every time they see me, they come over to me, really, really friendly. And they talk as if we're best mates, as Marvin saw right the other day, right? Now, I'm going to give you a paragraph from training which I did to his cohort. It was a few years ago. What I said to them was about 30, 40 officers. And I said this. I said, some of you are outstanding. You go out your way to help people. You think the right thing. You protect people. And you come from good stock, good areas, good backgrounds. Some of you are a nightmare. You should be in prison yourselves and you shouldn't be doing the job. The problem that I've got is I don't know who's who because you look alike.
Oh, wow.
I only know who's who by how you act and how you behave. What I'm going to do, and invite my community to, is to watch you and to identify you. And when you do well, praise you for doing well. But when you do badly, punish. So hold you to account, either praise or punish. Because what we have to do is to prevent bad cop. This is why I'll share that story with you.
Thank you so much.
I used to ask my elder brother and his brother a question like, what's three, ask me a question, I'm the third one out of us. What's 3 times 5, Junior? And 17, Dad. And then get my bigger brother and beat him and say, why did I beat you? And look at my little brother, and because I said it's 3 times 5 is 17, it's wrong. Yeah, the good must suffer for the bad, right? You must is multiplication there. Again, obviously, I never got away with it. I got beaten too. But the thing is, I learned my 5 times table. I know that 100 times 5. You know what I mean? So I didn't just go 12 times 5. I went to 200 times 5. You get me? Because I don't want to get a beating again from my dad. So now I go 30 years later, 50 years later, I'm teaching my students, do 10 press-ups. One of them fails to do the 10 press-ups because they just give up because they're tired. They do 2 press-ups. Right? Everyone's doing 10 press-ups, including me. I'm doing 10 press-ups until everyone has done 10 press-ups without failing. Right? Every time it collapses at 5 or 7, we're starting again. 1, 2, 3. We end up doing 200 press-ups, right? Because this one person decided to give up, right? For the bad. So when the policeman, Montel, does something wrong, everyone in the police force should get 50 quid docked on their pay.
Okay.
Does that count for the black community then? So when a black youth does something wrong, then the other black youth have to pay for their fuck up.
You'll soon see changes, is what I'm saying. If we had something like a laws change where the superintendent gets pension gets taken down, or you know what I mean, gets interrupted because one of his people decided to do flagrant bullshit.
Discipline. They need to be a bit disciplined. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is our responsibility for our behaviour. Who's accountable?
Yeah.
How do we hold ourselves accountable?
Because if we carried ourselves properly and acted right, then we're not giving them a reason to abuse. I'm not saying they won't still come and approach, ask us questions and that, but you know, if we're not aggressive and get hostile and you know, start committing Section 5 public order offences and that, really and truly, yeah, they may still prompt to try and incriminate us or, you know, provoke a reaction. But if we control ourselves, if we're in control of ourselves, our emotions, all the police are going to have to do is go and look a job elsewhere because we're not going to out of character. Do you understand?
Marvin, can I just play the devil's advocate? Somebody mentioned earlier on about teaching people know your rights, and we're about to launch that program again. Now, when I did it last time, I learned something from young people, which I now share with young people. And what that is if I teach people, mainly in Luton Farm and Follial and Mars Farm, etc., we get lots of black and mixed race kids, and a lot of them get it, and they don't want to be pushed around, okay? So they will react accordingly. Now, if I run those sessions in Flitwick or parts of Bedford and in Ampthill and in Central Bedfordshire and in Barton Hills, all of the kids are very placid, okay? And the reason why that is a bit like if you keep poking somebody, then they're going to react. Whether it's human or animal, they will react, okay? Now, I did a role play in Bedford Modern School with all white kids, and I said, carry out a stop and search. Really, really polite. They did it with each other. Now I said, shout at him, pretend you're an officer, shout at them, push them, and then even the most placid kids started to react and shout and act unfairly. They were acting like some of our young students because of how they're sometimes treated. So Marvin, you know I watch body-worn videos all the time, real life ones from officers all the time. I watch more than what Bedfordshire Police do because I pull them all down and I watch them all right. Now, the vast majority are people, especially people of colour, not doing anything proportionately wrong. The vast majority. So it's not quite right that they're doing it because they're overreacting and they're escalating. They don't do it for that reason. It's only a small percentage of officers who abuse their power, but that small percentage causes a big amount of disproportionality.
Ripple effect across the community. Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap up now. Thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Good to catch up with you all.
Good night.
Nice one, man.
Thank you, thanks, Desmond. Thank you to everybody.
All honored ancestors.
All right, blessed love.
Bye, everyone. Peace,
Blacks. Respect, Blacks.
Peace, love.
Bye, everyone.
God bless, guys.
Bless.